Probe Commission on September event submits report. Investigation cites misgovernance and regulatory failures. Recommends action against responsible officials. RSP sweeps House of Representatives elections, winning 118 of 154 seats. Party leads in threefold in PR. Nepali Congress ranks second. Nepal marks International Women's Day with nationwide celebrations. Theme highlights rights, justice and opportunities for all women and girls. US and Israel strike Iran as Gulf tensions escalate on ninth day of war. Iran responds with drone attacks on Bahrain. Revolutionary Guard warn of 6 months intense conflict. China urges immediate end to Middle East war, condensed conflict in Iran. Foreign Minister Wang Yi calls on US to resolve differences with Beijing. And India and New Zealand clash in ICC T20 World Cup final. Hosts India eye record title while New Zealand seeks first championship victory. Good evening, I'm Bijata Bhandari and welcome to NTV World Primetime News. We're coming to you live from Kathmandu at 1900 hours Nepal time. Elsewhere it's 13:15 in London, 22:15 in Tokyo and just after midnight in Sydney. Now let's see the news in detail. The Commission of Inquiry on the incidents of September 8 and 9 has submitted its report to the Nepali government today, presented to Prime Minister Sushila Karki. The commission, chaired by former Judge Gauri Bahadur Karki, included former Additional Inspector General of Police Bigan Raj Sharma and legal expert Bishweshwar Prasad Bhandari. The 1,000-page report, which documents the events surrounding the politically sensitive September incidents of 2025, attributes the unrest to misgovernance and failures of regulatory institutions. About 200 witnesses were interviewed and expert opinions were consulted before recommending action against those responsible. Prime Minister Karki confirmed that the report, or at least a summary, will be made public and submitted to the Council of Ministers for further action. Three-term extensions and finally the report held until the completion of the March 5 HOR elections. The Judicial Commission formed to investigate the 2 days of protests in September 8 and 9 has submitted its report. Though the report has not been made public, the recommendations and findings are being eagerly awaited by the public. With the elections results favoring a sweeping change in the governance, the implementation of the report will be a litmus test for the upcoming government, which seems to be certainly backed by a two-third majority. Devendra Subedi brings more.
The Judicial Commission formed to investigate the protests and vandalism on September 8th and 9th has submitted its report. Interestingly, within hours of the completion of the March 5 House of Representatives elections, it's a clear indication that Prime Minister Sushila Karki withheld the report before the election, sensing that it could spoil the environment for peaceful conclusion of the elections. What the report has suggested will only be public once the report goes into implementation, and hopefully it does get implemented, unlike in the past. Reports of some high-level commissions are still in the cells, which might have even been burnt to ashes in the arson inside Singha Darbar on the 9th of September. The former Justice Gauri Bahadur Karki-led commission, whose mandate was extended twice and the report kept in hold until the election, will be key to whether the new government, most likely formed by a new party, will really dare to act as per its promises. Though Prime Minister Karki committed to implement the report, the onus will be on the most probably two-third majority-backed upcoming government.
सिंहले यो वादीले यो भनौँ प्रतिवादीले यो भनौँ फलानाले यो भनौँ फलानाले बयान गरौँ त्यो त रिलिज हुँदैन निचोड के छ केही कुराहरू चाहिँ आउने हो त्यसैले फेरि पनि म एकदम धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु बहुत दुःख गरेर बहुत श्रम गरेर सबैजनाले एकदम ठुलो एउटा चाहिँ उहाँहरूले मेहनत परिश्रम गरेर गर्नुभएको हो अन्य त्यो आयोगका अन्य जो सहयोग गर्नेहरू हुनुहुन्छ अफिसरहरू सचिवज्यूहरू उहाँहरूलाई पनि म धन्यवाद दिँदै यति नै भन्दछु.
Some of the key figures, including former Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli, Home Minister Ramesh Lekhak, and some key figures in the security agency as well as bureaucracy might even be indicted in the report. The challenge will be of the new government to make people believe that things have really changed in Nepal as per the expectation of seeing the report being implemented. Commission Chair Karki, in a brief summary, concluded that the youth-led movement was largely driven by widespread frustration over poor governance and corruption in state institutions. The statement of Karki was not a hidden truth, but the finding is what the general public are looking forward to know and see the implementation of the report.
Rashtriya Swatantra Party RSP is dominating Nepal's House of Representatives election, winning 118 out of 154 constituencies in the public vote count so far. RSP candidates are also leading in an additional 7 constituencies, signaling a strong majority. Nepali Congress has secured 17 seats, while the CPN-UML has won 7 and is leading in 3 more constituencies. Other parties making modest gains include the Nepali Communist Party with 7 seats, the Shram Sanskriti Party with 3, and the Rashtriya Prajatantra Party along with independent candidate winning 1 seat each. Election results continue to roll in, highlighting a clear lead for the RSP in Nepal's parliamentary contest. Counting for Nepal's House of Representatives proportional representation vote is underway, with results from 4.42 million ballots so far made public. Rashtriya Swatantra Party is currently leading in the proportional election count with 2.19 million votes. Other major parties include the Nepali Congress with 7.45 million votes, the CPN-UML with 6.34 million, the Nepali Communist Party with 2.96 million, and the Rashtriya Prajatantra Party with 1.59 million votes. The results reflect ongoing shifts in Nepal's political landscape as parties compete for proportional representation in the parliament. Rashtriya Swatantra Party is on track to win nearly 2/3 of seats in this year's House of Representatives elections, marking an unprecedented victory in the country's 65-year political history. This is the first time a single party has secured such a large number of seats and vote margin under Nepal's mixed electoral system. The widening gap in support has also reduced the number of nationally recognized parties, with only 5 expected to meet the threshold this year compared to 7 last year. In the proportional representation vote, the Rashtriya Swatantra Party leads with 50%, followed by Nepali Congress at 17% and the CPN-UML at 14%. The CPN Maoist Centre and Rashtriya Prajatantra Party rank 4th and 5th respectively, highlighting a major reshuffle in Nepal's political landscape. Rashtriya Swatantra Party is poised to form a historic majority government in Nepal following a landslide election victory. As the last remaining election results continue to pour in, the mandate has clearly granted the relatively new party a chance to govern the country independently. Despite this power shift away from the earlier established political parties, the road ahead is not going to be as easy as it seems. Sabika Shrestha looks into the road ahead for RSP.
Established just 4 years ago, Nepal's Rashtriya Swatantra Party RSP is nearing an overwhelming 2/3 majority in the House of Representatives. The people in the March 5 election have shown their faith in the new party that has been championing good governance and anti-corruption crusade in the country. However, despite the clear majority, which in fact could exceed the magic figure of 2/3 in the lower house, experts suggest that the road ahead is not going to be as easy as promised. While a majority government can bring programs as per its election manifesto to establish good governance, draft new laws, pass budgets and maintain a corruption-free administration, it would still lack the unilateral power to amend the constitution, declare a state of emergency, hold referendums or sign long-term international treaties. As an RSP-led majority government becomes a near certainty, a clear debate has emerged regarding its capabilities and limitations. According to experts, government with two-third majority will not have any pressure from coalition partners in maintaining good governance to corruption-free administrative mechanism. Bringing the policy and programs as per the manifesto and allocating budget accordingly will also not be an issue, but the problem, as always, has been in the implementation. People will be eyeing the implementation more than the documents, which are promising without doubts. Furthermore, government with two-third majority would have the power to impeach and remove heads of constitutional bodies, members or high-ranking officials like the Chief Justice in cases of constitutional violations or incompetence. However, would the government prioritize such issues or works towards addressing the public concerns on service delivery and crackdown on corruption is the pertinent question.
दुई-तिहाई बहुमत चाहिँ दुईटै सदनको चाहियो त्यसको लागि चाहिँ राष्ट्रिय सभाको आफ्नो त दुईटै छँदैछ प्रतिनिधि सभामा कुनै दलसँग सरकार राख्न परेन कन्सल्ट गर्न परेन तर राष्ट्रिय सभामा त उले दुईटा या तीनटा दललाई चाहिँ कन्सल्ट गर्न पर्यो ट्रस्ट लिन पर्यो त्यो भयो भने के गर्न सक्छ भन्दा शासकीय स्वरूपमा परिवर्तन गर्न सक्छ जुन चाहिँ आज शासकीय स्वरूपमा चाहिँ ले स्थिर सरकार दिन सकेन एकमना सरकार हुन सकेन भने चाहिँ आज एकमना सरकार भयो त्यसमा चाहिँ निर्वाचन प्रणाली फेर्ने भनेका छन् अब एकदम लोकप्रिय दल भयो भने त निर्वाचन प्रणाली नफेरे पनि दुई-तिहाई आउन सक्ने स्थिति रहेछ नि त निर्वाचन प्रणाली फेर्ने नफेर्ने भन्ने प्रश्न पनि रह्यो यदि चाहिँ कोलिसन गभर्नमेन्ट भएको भए निर्वाचन प्रणाली फेर्न पर्थ्यो भन्ने कुरा आउँथ्यो तर त्यो पनि नपर्न पनि सक्छ या डाइरेक्ट इलेक्टेड प्रधानमन्त्री या राष्ट्रपति हुने भन्ने जेनजीको चाहिँ जुन माग छ त्यसलाई चाहिँ राष्ट्रिय सभाको दुईटा तीनटा दललाई चाहिँ उले ट्रस्ट लियो भने संविधान संशोधन गरेर शासकीय स्वरूपमा पनि परिवर्तन गर्न सक्छ.
However, obtaining a single party majority does not make a government omnipotent. For several critical decisions, a two-thirds majority in both the House of Representatives and the National Assembly is mandatory. With the upper house still in favor of the now defeated political parties, it would not be easy for the dominant force in the
Home Minister Om Prakash Aryal has said that good governance was maintained in the recent House of Representatives elections. Speaking after an election security review at the Election Commission, Minister Aryal lauded the Commission for ensuring a free and fair vote and said that such governance is the foundation of political stability. Aryal added that the incumbent government fulfilled its mandate by holding elections on schedule and thanked the Commission for its leading role.
चुनावी सरकारले अब सुरक्षाको पनि प्रत्याभूति गर्दै निष्पक्ष रूपमा चुनाव गर्नुपर्ने र समयभित्रै चुनाव गर्नुपर्ने जुन दायित्व थियो त्यो दायित्व हामीले पूरा गरेका छौं र यसमा पहिलाको भन्दा पनि धेरै सुदृढ भएर चुनाव गरेका छौं. पहिला हुने जो चुनावको बेला हुने हिंसाका घटनाहरू यसपालि भएनन् र पहिला चुनावहरू स्थगित हुन्थे निर्वाचन मतदान खास गरेर स्थगित हुन्थ्यो पुनः मतदान गर्नुपर्ने अवस्था हुन्थ्यो त्यो पनि कहीं पनि भएन. पहिला अलि यो अरूको नाममा भोट हाल्ने अनि चाहिँ बुथ क्याप्चर गर्ने लगायतका क्रियाकलाप हुन्थे ती पनि हामीले हुन दिएका छैनौं. त्यसकारणले यसपालि हामीले निर्वाचनको सुशासन पनि कायम गरेका छौं.
It's time for a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching NTV World Primetime News. Now, Nepal is celebrating the 116th International Women's Day today with a variety of programs across the country. This year's theme, set by the Ministry of Women, Children and Senior Citizens, is Rights, Justice and Opportunities for All Women and Girls with Action. The day is observed annually with a public holiday to honor women's labor, achievements and ongoing struggles for equality. International Women's Day originated from the campaign of German socialist thinker Clara Zetkin, who linked women's rights with the broader struggles of the working class. Events across Nepal today include cultural programs, discussions and awareness campaigns aimed at promoting gender equality and empowering women. Prime Minister Sushila Karki has called for greater participation of women in state policy making during a program at the Prime Minister's office on the 116th International Women's Day. Prime Minister Karki highlighted that marginalized women, including Dalits, Madhesis and those from the Karnali region, remain deprived of development opportunities and face the greatest hardships. Prime Minister Karki emphasized the need to integrate backward classes, especially women, into mainstream development and ensure equal access to resources. The executive head stressed that democracy must guarantee the respectful participation of every citizen in nation building. Referring to the Gen Z movement of September 8 and 9, PM Karki noted that the struggle for equality and good governance continues, requiring cooperation from all segments of society to end injustice and discrimination.
शक्तिको वैधता नागरिकको आत्मसम्मानको जगमा उभिएको हुन्छ। तसर्थ महिला लगायत विकासको मूल धारबाट पछि परेको वर्गलाई मूल धारमा ल्याउँदै अवसर र स्रोतहरूमा पहुँच सुनिश्चित गर्दै राष्ट्र निर्माणमा प्रत्येक नागरिकको सम्मानयुक्त सहभागिता सुनिश्चित गर्नु नै आजको लोकतन्त्रको मूल अभिष्ट हुनुपर्छ। आज हामी नारीको स्रोत, साधन र अवसरमा पहुँच अवश्य बढेको छ, तर त्यसको तुलनामा आत्मसम्मान पाउन मुस्किल परिरहेको छ। समान अवसर पहुँचको सुनिश्चितता भन्नुको अर्थ हो यहाँ विभेद र पक्षपात नहोस्, अन्याय र भ्रष्टाचार नहोस्, सबै नागरिकप्रति उत्तिकै जिम्मेवार र समान व्यवहार गर्ने संस्कृतिको विकास होस् भन्ने नै हो।
Nepal is celebrating the 116th International Women's Day with a historic shift in women's political empowerment, as a significant number of women secure seats in the country's House of Representatives. For the first time, the nation has a female Prime Minister, Sushila Karki, who successfully oversaw the March 5 parliamentary elections, ensuring not just representation but meaningful participation of women in policy making. Under the first-past-the-post system, 13 women have already won seats, including notable leaders such as Nisha Dangi, Indira Rana Magar and Sobita Gautam, among others. In the remote villages of Nepal, women are increasingly challenging traditional patriarchal norms and seeking equality with men. In Siangja, many women have moved beyond household roles, contributing actively to the local economy and becoming financially self-reliant. Women are also gaining visibility in politics, education, health, business, and social leadership, reflecting a gradual shift in rural gender dynamics. Government support through training, grants, and market access is seen as crucial to sustaining these efforts. Despite progress, many women in more remote areas emphasize that empowerment initiatives must focus on rural communities, not just urban centers, to create a lasting change. With us, it's time for another break. We shall see you back with international updates. The US and Israel continue to strike Iran, hitting oil storage depots and refining facilities in Tehran for the first time and sparking large fires across the capital. An Iranian drone attack caused material damage to a water desalination plant in Bahrain, the country's interior ministry has said. This comes a day after Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said that the US bombed a freshwater desalination plant in Kashm Island in southern Iran, setting a precedent. Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates report more Iranian strikes even after Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian offered an apology and pledged to halt attacks on Gulf states if no attacks originate from their territories. Meanwhile, dozens more people have been killed in Lebanon in major Israeli air and ground operations as the war with the Iran-backed group Hezbollah continues to escalate. Overnight, one Israeli operation in a town in the eastern Bekaa Valley, a focal point of the rising hostilities, saw at least 41 people killed and 40 injured, according to Lebanese health ministry. 3 Lebanese soldiers were among the dead, and locals listed the names of civilians, including children they had said been killed. The focus of the operation in Nabi Sheet was recovering the remains of an Israeli military airman who went missing in Lebanon 40 years ago.
نیروهای مسلح توانمند ما مقتدر جمهوری اسلامی حداقل برای یک جنگ تمام عیار 6 ماهه پر شدت با همین ریتم فعلی آمادگی کامل دارن.
Meanwhile, Iran's Revolutionary Guards has said the country's forces can fight an intense war for 6 months, with spokesman Ali Mohammad Naini saying more advanced missiles, those built in the past 10 years, haven't been used. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi has condemned the war in Middle East, saying it should never have happened and calling once again for an immediate end to hostilities. Wang also urged the United States to iron out its differences with Beijing at the press conference during the National People's Congress.
面对陷入战火的中东，我想说的是，这是一场本不应该发生的战争，也是一场对各方都没有好处的战争。
Beijing has previously blasted US and Israeli military actions in Iran, with which it has diplomatic and trade ties, and condemned in particular the killing of the country's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. In the meantime, foreign tourists remain stranded in Dubai after airports across the United Arab Emirates suspended flights following a regional escalation with Iran. Visitors from Europe report cancelled flights and sharply increased ticket prices, leaving many confined to hotels while seeking alternative routes home. Dubai International Airport, a major global transport hub, briefly closed on Saturday after Iran launched missiles and drones targeting locations across the Gulf, prompting heightened security measures. Airline officials said the suspension affected both international and domestic flights, creating widespread disruptions for the travelers. Authorities are monitoring the situation closely, coordinating with airline to resume operations safely. However, it is warned that prolonged disruptions could significantly impact tourism and business travel in the region, with thousands of passengers currently facing uncertainty over their return plans. Let's take a short break here. We will be back with more news in the international front. An explosion inside a nightclub in Peru's northern Trujillo injured 33 people early Monday morning, authorities said, as investigators described the incident as a possible attack. The blast occurred at the Dali nightclub, located in the Victor Larco Herrera district of La Libertad department, approximately 500 kilometers north of Lima. The regional government classified the explosion as an attack amid ongoing concerns over organized crime in the area. Local officials warned residents to remain vigilant as law enforcement increases security measures around the nightlife venues. Researchers from the University of Science and Technology of China have achieved a major breakthrough in optical clock technology, developing a strontium optical lattice clock with stability and uncertainty both surpassing the 10 to the minus 19 level, meaning the clock would lose or gain less than 1 second over roughly 30 billion years. Optical clocks are considered the most precise timekeeping devices currently available. They measure time by using the frequency of light emitted when electrons transition between energy levels in atoms. They can directly support the redefinition of the second in the International System of Units. Beyond timekeeping, optical clocks can provide highly accurate time references for modern technologies such as satellite navigation, telecommunications, and precision measurements. They also offer new experimental platforms for testing fundamental physics, including general relativity, as well as for the detection of gravitational waves and dark matter. Guatemala's Volcán de Fuego, one of Central America's most active volcanoes, erupted, sending ash and lava into the air as authorities warned residents of heightened volcanic activity. Officials cautioned that both Volcán de Fuego and nearby Santiaguito volcano pose risk of explosive activity, urging local communities to remain alert and prepared for potential evacuations. Volcán de Fuego, which rises to 3,763 meters and is located about 35 kilometers from Guatemala City, frequently exhibits eruptions, making it the most active volcano in the region. Authorities continue to monitor seismic activity and provide updates to ensure public safety. Now to latest from sports. The final of the 10th edition of the ICC T20 World Cup, co-hosted by India and Sri Lanka, has just begun at the Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad. Defending champions India cricket team face off against New Zealand cricket team for the coveted World Cup title. Historically, India has dominated this matchup, winning 4 of the last 5 encounters against New Zealand by large margins. A victory for India on home soil would give them a record number of T20 World Cup titles, while a win for New Zealand would crown a new champion. So far, India, West Indies and England have each won the title twice, while Australia, Sri Lanka and Pakistan have each claimed it once. We're almost at the end of this news bulletin, but before we wrap up, let's take a look at the headlines once again. Probe Commission on September Event Summit's report, investigation cites misgovernance and regulatory failures, recommends action against responsible officials. RSP sweeps House of Representatives election, winning 118 of 154 seats. Party leads threefold in PR. Nepali Congress ranks second. Nepal marks International Women's Day with nationwide celebrations. Theme highlights rights, justice and opportunities for all women and girls. US and Israel strike Iran as Gulf tensions escalate on the 9th day of war. Iran responds with drone attacks on Bahrain. Revolutionary Guards warn of 6-month intense conflict. China urges immediate end to Middle East war, condemns conflict in Iran. Foreign Minister Wang Yi calls on US to resolve differences. And India and New Zealand clash in ICC T20 World Cup final. Hosts India eye record title while New Zealand seeks first championship victory. That's it for this edition of NTV World Primetime News. Do join us through our social media and get the latest updates from our official website at nepaltelevision.com. Thank you for staying with us. Have a wonderful evening ahead.
Welcome to the studios of NTV World in Kathmandu. Public Service Broadcasting PSB Nepal's new initiative to make Nepal more visible and audible to the global audience. Welcome on board.
This is NTV World, facts that speak, insights that matter.
Telling the stories of a changing planet. NTV World, Nepal's perspective to the world.
Exploring the heartbeat of Nepali creativity. This is NTV World.
The power of story shaped by technology. NTV World.
Unearthing Nepal's hidden heritage. Discovering the timeless Nepal.
Telling stories that endure across centuries, where culture breathes, stories bloom.
When the world moves, we make a sense of it. NTV World.
Taste of Nepal. Every recipe, every flavor tells the story.
Journalism in the digital age. Fast, focused, verified.
Stories hold power. Stories reflecting life. Stories of the hinterlands. Reporting for NTV World.
This is NTV World. Welcome to News Hour.
This is NTV World. Welcome to Primetime News.
One story at a time.
Crossing borders, connecting voices, where Nepal meets the world in dialogue. This is NTV World, Nepal's perspective to the world.
Voices that connect Nepal to the world, bringing perspective, region and relevance to every story. NTV World, Nepal's perspective to the world.
Stand by. Mic is on.
3, 2, 1, cue.
We are NTV World.
Dai Lake in Karnali province is a geographically remote district, yet rich with untapped potential for tourism. Stepping into Dai Lake, celebrated as a treasure trove of Khas art, culture and heritage, brings a unique sense of joy. Journey begins amid its natural beauty, leading us toward Mahabu Rural Municipality. As we leave the mid-hill highway, the terrain becomes challenging, with hilly, muddy roads demanding patience and skill. Long lines of vehicles crawl carefully along the cliffs, reflecting both the difficulty of the route and the enduring devotion of Mahabu Dham. Many travelers choose to continue on foot, advancing step by step toward their destination. Passing through Channa, Dasarate, Okharbans, Bhavsaini, Noli and Unipata, pilgrims ascend the slopes toward Lisne before finally reaching Mahabu Patan. Pilgrims from Dailek and nearby districts often arrive late at night, having begun their journey the previous day. The path to Mahabudham is thrilling, adventurous and breathtaking, made even more dramatic by the steady rain, drifting fog and steep inclines. Yet the journey itself feels uniquely rewarding. Mahabu Lake or Mahabu Dham, located within Mahabu Rural Municipality, is a remarkable place of natural beauty, religious significance and cultural heritage. Situated at an altitude of 4,200 meters, the area is adorned with emerald lakes, grazing flocks of sheep and goats, and a sky that dances with Himalayan mist. Every year, during Janai Purnima, a grand fair is held here, drawing thousands of devotees from across the region. Mahabudham's spiritual importance is deeply rooted in the ancient worship of Lord Shiva, revered here as the origin site. From Mahabu Lake, visitors can enjoy magnificent views of Api and Saipal Himal, and on clear days, even the plains of Bardya. Given its religious importance and natural splendor, Mahabudham holds immense potential as a religious tourism destination. Improving the rough, narrow access roads is essential for supporting this growth. Mahabudham is more than a pilgrimage site. It is a confluence of culture, history, faith, and nature. To truly appreciate its significance, one must visit Mahabu Lake at least once, immerse oneself in its natural beauty, and experience the serene environment that leaves a lasting impression.
Music, dance, food, art and devotion are the lifeblood of Newar culture, an ancient civilization rooted in the Kathmandu Valley of Nepal. With lively festivals nearly every fortnight, the Newars celebrate life through a rich tapestry of traditions known as Jatra.
Volcanic and Trisuli river rafting. Rafting has lately been gaining popularity among tourists. The adventure sport, which previously was popular only among foreigners, is now drawing the local tourists as well. Trisuli and Volcanic rivers that are close to Kathmandu are two popular destinations for rafting in Bagmati province. Let us first explore Volcanic. Whitewater rafting at Volcanic river is included among the 10 best adventure destinations for rafting in the world. Volcanic, which is well facilitated with food and accommodation, can be a great destination for rafting and other adventure sports. Rafting at Trisuli River is popular among domestic tourists, as the location can be reached in an hour from Kathmandu. This is where most tourists go for rafting in Nepal. Rafting packages or Votekosi and Trisuli are appropriate for those who want to spend some good time for a few days.
धन्यवाद भन्दा पनि यो स्वाभाविक नतिजाको अपेक्षा छ र नतिजाको अब अन्तिम चरणमा हामी छौँ र जिम्मेवारी बढेको
A very good evening to all our viewers. Welcome to Nepal Elections Special Dialogue on NTV World. I'm Shivani Thapa Bosniak with you. As election results continue to come in from across Nepal, the early trends are already suggesting a political moment that could reshape the country's parliamentary landscape. A relatively new political force appears to be performing very strongly, in fact, more than expected, in many of the directly elected constituencies of the House of Representatives. But while election day or the immediate election aftermath often focuses on numbers and victories, the deeper questions begin only after the votes are counted. How does a constitutional system absorb a sudden political shift like this? Was a scenario or such a scenario anticipated by the architects of Nepal's constitutional framework? And perhaps most importantly, what happens next? Nepal's lower house has 275 seats in total, with 165 elected directly and 110 through the proportional representation. So even as trends emerge, the final parliamentary balance and therefore the shape of the next government remains uncertain. But beyond the arithmetic lies a broader institutional question. How will Nepal's political system adapt to this changing shift in the central role in governance? And to explore that, I'm joined in by constitutional scholar Dr. Bipin Adhikari, who was closely involved in Nepal's constitution writing process. Dr. Adhikari, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Namaste.
It's a pleasure to have you here in our studios in this very, very crucial moments.
Thanks.
So let us begin at the core area of your expertise, Dr. Adhikari. Was the scenario of what we are witnessing at this moment so dramatic as many are perceiving, right? Was this scenario even anticipated or expected by our constitution?
I think it's very much normal in politics. Once you have elections, most of the time you are very clear which one is going to be the first party or second party. But then in the present case, it was somewhat a little surprise also. But then everybody expected RSP to perform better than what they did last time. Beyond that, this time, they have done very well. I mean, they are not simply going to be a largest party, but hopefully a majority party also with a very strong presence in the House of Representatives. So this will be the first time after the promulgation of the new constitution of Nepal in 10 years. Let's say we will have the first majority-led government. And that's something very good for the country. But again, the scenario will be clear only after all the results are declared. So the counting is going on. And it is very clear that RSP is leading. And then the competing parties who are on the pipeline, they are not doing better. And the gap between them is so vast. So that means that the new party will, form a government which is very confident, which has very strong presence in the parliament, and also which can make a lot of changes they have been talking about.
That's something the Nepali people have been looking forward to for a long, long time now. But still, given the electoral system that Nepal exercises, it's too early for us to make any sort of predictions, but then assumptions that we cannot stop, right? And again, there's been so much drama in the numbers that are surfacing. But still, let me get back to the same question again. When Nepal's current constitutional framework was designed, Dr. Adhikari, under the Constitution of Nepal 2015, and which, one of the architects, you were in the team.
I don't say I'm an architect, but then I was, one of the experts providing external support to the constitution building process.
Right, right. So, as one of the experts, was the possibility of a completely new political party or political force emerging so quickly in Parliament something that the Constitution anticipated?
That's now the fait accompli. I don't say that gives a negative connotation. I mean, that's not my intention. The RASP is on board, obviously, as a leading party. And the way they have been performing, I mean, it shows that they will lead the future, and with a very strong presence in the House, as I said already. So this time the difference is the opposition parties will be meager. There will be very limited number of parties in the Parliament, and most of the parties are, at present, they are fighting their existence in the polling center. You can see that there are more than 65 parties contesting elections, and they have not been able to show up with the ballot papers so far, and only couple of parties are there, and even the dominant parties in the country so far, like Nepali Congress, UML, and the other parties who started as regional parties are also facing the existential crisis, because getting down to you can see that Nepali Congress will now its strength in the house that was dissolved was almost 88 or 89 out of 275. Now it's not going to be the same. They will decline further, and it's possible that they will end up with let's say let's say 24-25 seats, and it's said to be declared, but then they are not performing. So the opposition will be a weak opposition with a very strong heavyweight ruling party, and that means the parliamentary system, especially its internal check and balance, will suffer with that changed context, and that's very much going to happen very soon.
And it's just 10 years or a little more that the Constitution was promulgated, right? So
yes,
I mean, like, was this anticipated, or did the Constitution anticipated a little gradual change in these sort of
equations? I think the formation of government, as far as the Constitution is concerned, it only has the provisions for how in a given scenario the government will be formed, and this type of eventuality is always there in the Constitution, so it's not unpredictable. So what is now the change in the scenario is that a single party is coming up as a dominant party in the Parliament, and many of us here, they used to remark that it's not possible to form a majority government in Nepal anymore because of the proportional electoral system, and now it has proved wrong, that even within the proportional system, a strong majority party could lead the government. So if there are alternatives, people are ready to vote for. So the constitutional provisions are there. I don't think there is any stress on these provisions.
Nepal's parliamentary system combines both the direct elections and the PR representation as well. So we still have to wait a little more to see a clearer picture of how the equations emerge, right? From a constitutional design perspective, Dr. Adhikari, what role does this proportional representation meant to play in moments like this? Like, is the system designed to moderate sudden electoral swings like the ones that we're experiencing?
I think it was like it was not a swing. In fact, the dominant political forces in the country had a problem to read, what is written on the wall. They have been failing because there was, a strong hue and cry that the government has not been able to ensure good governance. The rising corruption had been an issue always, and the selective enforcement of rule of law had been clearly an issue for many years. So that was something that everybody talked about, but then none of the political parties in the country were able to pick up these little threads in the electoral process. This time RSP did it, and so RSP came forward as an alternative, and obviously it is being trusted by the people. The proportional representation, in fact, this has been introduced into the constitutional system of Nepal to make sure that there is a proper level of inclusion in the political process, and also that the regions as well as the ethnic groups in the country are properly represented. So that came in addition to first past the post system, which is ideology based, and many people thought that the political parties in Nepal they will be able to keep up with the ideological thread along with representation ensured through proportional system, and in fact they have been able to do it. It's only that this time the change is, it has reached through a crisis level. Now that people voted without trusting anybody, and you can see that as I said, the competitors are not performing very well. If you see how the RSP is leading in almost all constituencies, except there are rare exceptions. Otherwise, it's very something that we didn't see before, that even now votes are being counted in more than 120 constituencies. The 120 constituencies, and in all of these constituencies RSP is leading, and except for the gaps between the winner and those following up is very big, and it's because even the voters of the first the post system, they have been very, very objective this time. They didn't trust their the world allies anymore.
So you would rather dub it as an issue of delivery,
yes,
rather than a failure of a system?
No, the system has not failed. I think the system is intact, and nobody has really complained about the system. There are some marginal voices about how to make it more representative, and obviously that could always be done if there is a national consensus. But then the political parties, they had a problem. So despite the clear constitutional position about inclusion, proportional inclusion, and many voices of change, the provisions of change, these were not implemented so well, and the problem started with the political parties as public institutions, and now there is a change. So the driver will be replaced this time.
Right. So if the current trend holds, just let's shift our focus to the emerging figures from the Election Commission at the moment. If the current trend holds, Dr. Adhikari, Nepal could see a parliament where traditional parties are significantly weakened, right? And as you said, certainly we are looking, like the figures show a pretty much weakened opposition, right? So a parliamentary democracy largely relies not only on a government but also on a very, very credible opposition. So In an assumption, should the traditional forces collapse in this election, who provides the opposition?
The opposition will still be there. It's only that it will not be as strong as before. In fact, during the last two general elections, we had very clear opposition parties within the parliament. But then they were very ambitious. In fact, the coalitions that were manufactured during the last 20 years, I think they were not strictly on the basis of democratic principles. So despite the fact that some political parties clearly had the popular mandate in their favor, some weaker parties, the opposition groups who should have been in the opposition, they were leading the government because they tried to, some way manage the mathematics in the and some way come out with the majority, but leaving the fact that elections are held in order to see who has popular mandate, and forces with popular mandate were forced to be in the opposition. For example, you see Nepali Congress was the largest party in the bygone parliament, but then it was not leading the show simply because of certain political interest, and it was like in the coalition it was a marginal partner and the government was led by UML, and that happened because the principle of democracy were not, very much into play in this dynamics of, relationship. Now that there will be a change, there will still be certain political parties, for example, and there is a possibility that they will merge with each other, many of them, in order to ensure their visibility as an opposition group, or even they will have some working coalition between themselves. So that way also they can ensure that they are able to serve as opposition, a loyal opposition to the system.
Would that pave way to a danger that too weak in opposition could weaken democratic accountability?
I think opposition is very much needed, and it has to be a strong opposition. But in modern world, it's not the opposition in parliament which matters. We have the free and independent media, which I think, if you compare with the rest of the South Asian countries, I think we are still very much independent, and that serves to the advantage of our democracy. And apart from that, the civil society of Nepal is also very much, I think it is very strong, and so it is also there. And even RSP, it is going to have the necessary numbers to make it stronger, but it cannot be very strong because it is yet to develop as a political party, because it lacks institutions throughout the country. The first thing. Secondly, it has to develop internal disciplines. This is the code of conduct and the certain standard norms and values that will be used to discipline the cadres as well as the leaders, and they project the party as a single unified voice, and that takes a lot of time. After the government is formed, it will have to be pursued very carefully and for a long time. Similarly, we can see that because the party is very new, the candidates, they come from different background. Most of the candidates of RSP, they are not from social background. They have not been very much in the political, let's say at the grassroots level. They have very meager, existence. So whatever, even though they are in the parliament, their relationship with the people who voted for them is still weak. They have to build on that. and these, I said, social, groups, professional groups, civil society, universities, and Nepal is very much politically divided society. It's divided because it's not developing very fast. When the development process is very fast, people become futuristic. When this is not the case, people concentrate on distributive issues more, on creating, rather than how to create more wealth, and that could be distributed. So these are challenges for the new party, and they have no idea at all. What I see is they have a very small but very meaningful political manifesto that they released before contesting elections. It's a very smart document. I can see that they have been able to understand the country and also project what they need to do if they are elected. So this is a time to work on that. But building on that will take, many years. So, and some of the challenges are very difficult challenges. So they have committed, for example, that they will implement the recommendation of Janji Commission, which is yet to submit its report to the government. And that report will deal with the Janji movement, especially the movement that kicked off the whole process in the last September. You can see that there are issues of impunities, liabilities, violation of criminal law, violence, all these things there. Now they are committed to it. There is a social contract. Similarly, they have been saying that they will be, if they are elected, they will be opening up all corruption files, since 1990. So that's a very, very loud claim. You have to see whether legally it is possible, because criminal laws have the concept of limitations, and the institution of any case has to go through certain procedural requirements. So these are challenges that they have to manage in due course.
Exactly, Dr. Adhikari, because what the Nepali people are sending into the parliament is a lot of hope, dreams, promises, frustration, and aspirations.
Yes.
But the real test begins after the euphoria settles down, right? So after all the arithmetic settles down. So you lead me to the challenge part. So let us now walk through a few of the major challenges that we foresee in the very, very immediate future. Now, as young as the new political force is apparently, even Nepal's constitution is equally, young to Nepal, right?
A new document.
Nepal's constitutional system again is federal in nature now, a very new federal democratic with significant powers distributed to the provinces as well. So even if the federal parliament changes dramatically with the new forces ushering in, provincial governments may remain dominated or will remain dominated by the established parties. How much of a friction do you foresee in the very immediate future?
I think there are many such issues, and the first thing is to, the new government will have to make sure that it knows what it is going to do in the next 5 years, make the detailed plan, and start with the first step. So popular, decision making does not help at all. So what we saw in the past, they take political decision very fast, and later they realize that they decided something very wrong. And now when you think about a constitutional amendment, for example, it's a major issue. The RSP has not taken any position on it, but then this is something that it will be pressurized into thinking, because there are issues that needs to be handled. And now how is it going to do it? This is one thing. There are foreign policy issues, and that's something that many critics are worried about, because most of these people are very young, and many of them do not have very firm background in Nepali society, Nepali history, Nepali culture, Nepal's fight for its existence over the last 200 years. This has been a significant issue, international relations. And coming back to the internal issues, there are this is a society with many ethnic groups, the many regions, and there are different aspirations. Now these issues are it's not enough that you are correct. You have to be reasonable also, and then you should be able to demonstrate it to the people, even to the people who disagree with you, and that's also there. So it has to be done, step by step, and without losing the current, and that's always a challenge.
Mm-hmm. We've been discussing the constitutional and institutional implications of these election trends. But of course, there are Nepalis who are watching us live at the moment, Dr. Adhikari, and who are also watching these developments very, very closely. And many are asking some practical questions about what happens next. So let's bring in a few questions that our viewers have sent in on our live streamings and our broadcast. I would want to pick a question first from Manuja Upriti, and she asks, do you think the new party that is likely to form the upcoming government will be able to address the demands of the Gen Z?
Yeah, of course, it is in a position to fulfill the demands of the youths of the country. So, and in fact, RSP has come forward because of the strong support of youths, and so they have required majority, and the constitution does not prohibit for any changes. They can go for any changes, and the challenge is to sit with the youths and find out what exactly they want and how to pursue it, because there is no quick fix to their problems. Youths are related with different problems in our society, and it's a matter of prioritization and also developing strategies, and then pulling on resources. And this is possible, especially for the people who are educated, who have very good background, who are committed to this country. The government should be able to offer what it can do to them, to the entrepreneurs, to the fresh graduates, to those who want to stay in the country and contribute to its development as well as build their career. So this is possible, and now that they can start with the ministry with a clear terms of reference for the youths, and we don't have separate committed ministerial portfolio for the youths and their issues.
Mm-hmm. The next question I get to pick is from Haris Suwal, and Haris Suwal chose to send us a question which reads, is it just a political wave for change or real awakening of the voters?
I think this is a very calculated question, I can see. I would say this is a mix of both these situations, expectations, and obviously people who voted, they voted for good, and then there was a big wave. You see, the parties, the political parties who ruled the country so far, let's say for the last 35 years or so, they were very strong parties. Now at once they all are, on the margins. That means that there was something seriously wrong on their part. Now those who are saying that they have the solution to the problems of this society, they should be able to deliver, and nothing will help if the delivery, that means good governance aspect of the the new government is weak. So I would say that we have to offer solutions on both these parts.
Mm-hmm. Some really interesting questions coming in, Dr. Adhikari. We have one from Janardhan Baral, who asks, the voters' turnout suggested otherwise of the general excitement. How do you see the significant drop in the voters' turnout at polling stations?
I think there are, I think in Nepal, this was not a right timing for the general elections. We need to understand, but it was a constitutional compulsion. We cannot, hold up election for an indefinite period. Once the House is dissolved, within 6 months, the replacement must be there. So, not a good season for the election. And in the Himalayan region, obviously, even now there is snowfall. So people who had to travel to the polling stations, they had to suffer. That must have, impacted. And also there are, it's true that many new faces turned up this time, but many old faces, they declined. They thought that what the use of voting again and again? It does not, bring any change to our situation. So that mentality must also have some way affected the decision making. And also that 60% is not bad. If we go by international average, that's still very important, I think. We talk about legitimacy of the election only when the system has not offered opportunities to the people to go to the polling stations. There are structural disadvantages created, but we don't have that scenario anymore. So the 60% turnout is not bad. I would say if we are able to maintain it, I think we still can have a legitimate government politically. Constitutionally, it is already legitimate.
Mm-hmm. There's one more question coming in. I'm not sure if this is quite relevant to the context or the topic that we are discussing, but still I would want to take this question. It's there's no name, it's an anonymous question. It says, why cannot we implement out-of-constituency voting and abroad voting? I'm sure there were so many people who wanted to vote but were refrained from their voting rights owing to all these infrastructural and policy hurdles. So the question is why, and is there a special protocol for voting from outside the country?
This is possible, but then it's a management issue. We need to develop our capacity to do it, number one. The second thing is when we have, the polling stations, organized outside the country, the political power of the government will get limited, because it's not just about casting the vote, it's about exercising political freedoms. And then no foreign country will allow our people to exercise political freedoms in their country in order to effect, our, to take part in our, voting system, the casting vote here. So, and the technology aspect is very important, and you can see that we have not been able to do some little technological changes even in Nepal, And so when doing it internationally, we need a lot of, strong, the support from the technical team, which the election commission is not capable of at present. But then my point of view was we could have started piloting it from 1 or 2 countries. And then based on our experience this time, we could have gradually, further, develop our strategy. But that didn't happen at all. So initially the Home Minister was very positive about it. And my comment was, we have a very young, minister, and very hopeful, and good luck. But then there are challenges. And these things have not been done, not because the political representatives didn't want it, simply because they were not able to do it. And not just for the sake of, because of the resources, but also because of capacity and basically technical capacity.
Right, because with a significant population like living outside the geography of Nepal, and even like so many people, living at various parts of inside Nepal's boundaries.
And also digital voting is not something that that you can do so easily if the voters are not quite educated about certain, digital.
So we need to prepare.
Yeah, you have to educate them. The voters training program have to be initiated. The confidence has to be developed among people living outside, and there are the aging people also who have a problem to live up with technology, and also very young professionals. And obviously once you allow them, they will have their own demands about timing, about certain structures, and things go on, because you can once you start, you have to be gradually you have to unfold yourself, right, and provide opportunities as far as possible. So that was the challenge, I think.
It will come, but a lot of preparations needs to be done for that.
If we start now, probably in the next 5 years, we might be able to start it in certain jurisdictions.
Dr. Adhikari, let's come back to the other part of the conversation now. Let me begin with one of the questions sent in by our viewers. Let me build on a little more on what the viewer said, because when voters deliver a result that is this dramatic, right? Analysts often call it a mandate. Everybody calls it a mandate, but mandates are usually, or it can be, very ambiguous as well. What has been your observation? Did voters vote for the agenda of Rashtriya Swatantra Party, or did they vote against the traditional political establishment?
I think basically they wanted to get rid of the traditional political parties. That's very true. I mean, I thought that Nepali Congress will still perform because there was a change of leadership, and the new leader was certainly a cut above others, and somebody who really one of the smartest politicians in the country. But then people were not able to recognize, because they wanted to get rid with political parties. It's because of the habits, the culture, the political culture of the ruling elite that that developed a very sinister face during the last 10 years, or even for many decades, I must say. So but then there are voters who thought of, who went through the party manifesto also, who really thought that there are educated people with RSP, These people are not anyway, lesser in education or performance in their field than others in the political mainstream in Nepal, and also that especially recently Balendra Shah as a mayor, he performed very well. So the political parties especially, they didn't like him so well, but then people were able to see that the Kathmandu, metropolitan city they lived in was not the same after 3 years of his tenure as the mayor. So the changes are something that have been noted, and the political side is also very prominent. You can see the mayor comes from Madhesi background, has a Madhesi background, but has a very strong national perspective. That's something many Madhesi leaders lacked in this country. They always talked about their narrow framework rather than talking about the nation. And this gentleman was very different. So he never talked about his ethnicity, talked about the country, the change, the development, the positive scenario that we needed, and he delivered. So that was something that was a very good example that RSP was able to share with the voters in its public programs throughout the country, and that helped the party to really generate interest in its perspectives.
So you really mean to say it gathered an appeal for the voters, especially the voters are very what you called action-hungry voters, right?
Absolutely.
That is quite an appeal for the voters, which instigated such a momentum.
Rabi Lamichhane himself, is is an aggressive speaker, who can perform very well in terms of public speech, and that's something. And also that he has his image as a TV journalist, and many people knew him as a journalist who always was on the right side of the history. So that has had certain advantage. And also the new faces, these people were not controversial, the candidates that were given, but rather you can say they were least known but not controversial, and mostly educated. And so in an environment where you don't have good options, they came with options. So the traditional parties have to look back and see where they committed mistake in their election campaigns, and the mistakes are very clear.
And even for the new force, Dr. Adhikari, because around the world we've seen movements rise very, very quickly, especially during periods of public frustration, right? But governing requires some really strong administrative capacity, policy frameworks, and institutional coordination, which you already stated the new party or the new force is still gathering and building on. So from your perspective, what would be the most immediate institutional challenge for any new government that emerges from this election?
I think, the party will obviously it will be overwhelmed by expectations from the voters, and also we have a concept of quickly talking about 100 days and accomplishment within this period. It's rubbish. I don't believe in it. But then this is how Nepali voters think. This issue is also there. But then once the government is formed, the government will have to do what they have promised. Very small things to bring in changes which are very significant in the country. You have to, first of all, stop politicization of bureaucracy, stop it outright. And once the bureaucracy comes back to normal, it has enormous talent, a lot of capacity, the historical knowledge, and there are institutions and practices that are enough to sustain our governance system. So the second thing is political appointments. Stop appointing people who are politically biased. Go for professionals and people with real capacity, and the people with optimum capacity in the positions that they deserve most. And once the three things are done together, I think the whole scenario will change. This is a country with abundance of resources. We don't suffer from lack of resources. The money is not an issue. The reputation of the country is still very good, and we have a very good network of relationship internationally. Now that the government has to balance international relations, make sure that our processes are autonomous and with young people and leaders like RSP, the challenge is to make sure that the new establishment is believed by both our neighbors as well as the international community. And that's very significant because they very often tilt towards one side and lose the goodwill of the other. And this is not how a country can go forward. So similarly, the budget, our national budget is always underspent, less utilized. The development programs have not been successful. So the management capacity has been a disaster because the people who have been recruited are incompetent people. Once these competent peoples are on board, things will have a very positive scenario. And Nepalis have been looking forward to see that democracy is at work. And that is something that the new government will have to assure. And these little things mean a lot to the common people. And they know that the government is not going to distribute cash to them. So nobody is expecting it. They want that the service delivery is not obstructed. So whatever is there in law is hopefully in reality as well. So this is something that comes as a challenge. And capacity, obviously, as we go along, we can develop, but then norms and practices we can improve immediately. And this is the challenge for the new leadership.
And in the midst of all this, how do you perceive the role of bureaucracy and the bureaucratic cooperation?
Bureaucracy, I think we have, even now, I think, well, I come from the independent sector, not from the public sector as such. But then this is very clear that even now, today, the government is the biggest employer in the country. It is the smartest of all the employers. It goes through Public Service Commission. The talented people are here. It was only that the working environment was bad because it was politically tainted. Now that once there is a professional government which knows what is the limit to its power, certainly the bureaucracy will be able to help the new government by all means. And it's now, once you don't divide the bureaucracy politically, obviously you can take the help of everybody there. And we have very eminent people there, very trained, people with expertise. And I said, even now, we have the best lawyers in the bureaucracy. Best, accountants are there in the bureaucracy. I can say that the best policymakers are there. So the government's resources have been underutilized. And now that once there is a government which does not have to feed its cadre obviously it can build on its strength. And I think if there is, they take the due course, these things will eventually come, the alignment will gradually be developed.
And now, let me come to one of the most fundamental questions, Dr. Adhikari. Nepal's constitution is still relatively very, very young. And if a relatively new party, suddenly dominates the House of Representatives, does that suggest the system is working? Because voters can dramatically change leadership like what we are seeing right now? Or does it suggest the system hasn't been delivering, prompting voters to seek an entirely new political force, right? So does this election reopen the debate about constitutional reform?
I think, well, there are always some people talking about constitutional amendment. But amendment is not a game of chance. You have to plan it. You have to think about it with certain homework, and that has to be done by the government first. The government has to study where does it want changes, and once it is clear about its proposal, it can then go to public platforms. Obviously, it can come out with a green paper and then start discussing it at popular level. So that has not happened in Nepal. And if you believe me, you see, I saw at present we don't have any anti-constitutional voice in Nepal. If people are talking about it against the constitution, they are in their drawing rooms, not in the public forums. You can see even Biplav, the only left out politician who didn't endorse this constitution, was also seen voting this time. Okay, so you can see we don't have anti-constitutional voice. Many Madhesis, many Janjatis, many deprived people, they want to see that this constitution is implemented according to its own standards. So whatever is being offered is not being actualized, is not being operationalized. We want to see these provisions must be implemented so that the people, the affected interest, really could feel that, okay, there is a change in the system now, and now our plight is also changing. Now that has not happened. So the first challenge is to implement the constitution, and of course there are people who think that our federalism, the federalization process has not worked. I mean, we can look into it. That's an important aspect of our constitutional process. Similarly, there are many economic, social and cultural rights. They need to be enforced very strongly, and that has not been done. We can see what is the problem with the relevant laws. Similarly, we can also see that there are many constitutional commissions. They need to be boosted up so that they are relevant in terms of our governance system, and that needs to be done. There are so many issues, but I don't think there are issues that places us in the margin of life and death. It's untrue. It's simply not the case.
Right. This question or concern has come to the fore, especially owing to a few statements or reservations embraced by the members of the newly constituted political force, the emerging political force, right? So the clarity, as you said, is yet to come for the
Yeah, but let me tell you that I've gone through the party manifesto of RSP. I mean, they don't talk about constitutional amendment. So very smartly, they didn't want to, enter into controversies at the polling center. So that was very smart way. And now that they are, once they start leading the government, they can obviously, as constitute a task force on constitutional amendment. And in fact, the present government has already signed, an understanding with the Genji representatives about, organizing the constituting task force in order to reform the constitution. So it's a commitment of the government already. So the new government can work on it, but it's a slow process. You don't have to go for high jump. No need. This is a process that has to go stepwise, and don't create bumps before you start.
Right.
So that is possible.
Right. Should a scenario or a situation like this arise, Dr. Adhikari, is Nepal ready for a constitutional amendment, or let me rephrase it, or would reopening that debate risk destabilizing the political system again?
I think now the government, the new government, will be a strong government, at least in terms of ballot papers. It had that capacity to bring to introduce its concept about changes in the constitution. So it can talk about it because it has the control system at work now. It doesn't rely on coalition anymore. So if it feels it has to go ahead, it can start with a moderate planning. But then I think it can, the challenge is to implement the constitution so that we really know what exactly are its problems. I mean, we are hypothesizing, talking about something we don't know fully. I'm a constitutional expert, but I feel that even today there are many provisions in the Constitution that have not been given enough opportunity towards implementation. It's because the government of the day thought that it's not necessary. For example, the Constitution has a provision for creation of autonomous regions. I mean, there are many people who are thinking in terms of, protecting their identity through the political structures. The Constitution had that vision in the document, but then that has not been done. No law has been passed towards that, particular objective. And so many people feel that, okay, we are a minority, or we are a small ethnic group or deprived ethnic group, and we are not able to have our own, regional system, even though the Constitution has afforded it. So that's something that's we should not lie about our political system. If it is there in the Constitution, it has to be on the ground as well. And that is something that has to be explored now, that there is a constitution. The new government, which does not have any controversies with it. Of course, with leadership there are certain issues, even with RSP, but then these are always there in a lively political system. But once the government is instituted, it can go through all these constitutional provisions and make sure that they are implemented to know what are the reforms actually needed, so that we can do the job better. So the Constitution has a framework. So there we talk about constitutional change so much. This is not necessary. This Constitution can be used for present purpose even without amendment if there are right set of people able to implement it. So this is what we have to think.
Thank you, Dr. Adhikari. Thank you so much for coming over and sharing your very insightful thoughts.
My pleasure.
Right. The election results suggest that Nepal may be entering a new phase in its democratic journey. A new political force appears to have captured the aspirations of voters who have grown impatient with instability and political stagnation. But elections are only the opening chapter, And Nepal's political system is shaped by institutions, federal structures, and the constitutional framework established under the Constitution of Nepal 2015. Those institutions move more slowly than electoral waves. So the real question now is whether this moment of political change can translate into something more durable, stable, governance and institutional reform and renewed public trust. And that was a discourse that we held with our constitutional expert. And that's it from this special dialogue program. We'll continue to bring in you more aspects of the Nepal elections 2026 in our programs that will follow in the following days. Until then, from the entire team, goodbye.
Lake in Karnali province is a geographically remote district, yet rich with untapped potential for tourism. Stepping into Lake, celebrated as a treasure trove of Khas art, culture and heritage, brings a unique sense of joy. Journey begins amid its natural beauty, leading us toward Mahabur Rural Municipality. As we leave the mid-hill highway, the terrain becomes challenging with hilly, muddy roads demanding patience and skill. Long lines of vehicles crawl carefully along the cliffs, reflecting both the difficulty of the route and the enduring devotion of Mahabur Dham. Many travelers choose to continue on foot, advancing step by step toward their destination. Passing through Channa, Dasarathe, Okharbanz, Bhavsaini, Noli and Unipata, pilgrims ascend the slopes toward Lisni before finally reaching Mahabur Patan. Pilgrims from Lake and nearby districts often arrive late at night, having begun their journey the previous day. The path to Mahabur Dham is thrilling, adventurous and breathtaking, made even more dramatic by the steady rain, drifting fog and steep inclines. Yet the journey itself feels uniquely rewarding. Mahabur Lake or Mahabur Dham, located within Mahabur Rural Municipality, is a remarkable place of natural beauty, religious significance and cultural heritage. Situated at an altitude of 4,200 meters, the area is adorned with emerald lakes, grazing flocks of sheep and goats, and a sky that dances with Himalayan mist. Every year, during Janai Purnima, a grand fair is held here, drawing thousands of devotees from across the region. Mahabur Dham's spiritual importance is deeply rooted in the ancient worship of Lord Shiva, revered here as the origin site. From Mahabur Lake, visitors can enjoy magnificent views of Api and Sai Palhimal.
Israel's military has declared it will target any potential successors to Iran's deceased Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei after regional tensions intensify as Middle East conflict enters the 9th day. The escalation began after a drone strike struck a government facility in Kuwait, igniting a large fire overnight. Additional attacks have been reported across the Gulf as the conflict enters its second week, raising concerns over further regional destabilization. In Iran, multiple oil depots are hit by intense aerial bombardments, with residents reporting successive explosions and waking to skies blackened by thick smoke. Authorities have heightened security measures and emergency response teams are actively monitoring the affected areas. Meanwhile, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates reported more Iranian strikes after Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian offered an apology and pledged to halt attacks on Gulf states if no attacks originate from their territories. Israel also has warned residents in southern Lebanon to evacuate as it targets the Iran-backed group Hezbollah. Overnight, one Israeli operation in a town in the eastern Bekaa Valley, a focal point of the rising hostilities, saw at least 41 people killed and 40 injured, according to the Lebanese Health Ministry. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump says his war with Iran may only end with its military and rulers wiped out as Tehran moved on Sunday towards picking a new supreme leader while missiles and drones flew across the Middle East. Trump at the White House said the military campaign that the United States is waging against Iran is going very well.
Iran, we're doing very well. Somebody said, how would you score it from 0 to 10? I said, I'd give it a 12 to a 15. Their army is gone. They're just about, look, their navy is gone. Their communications are gone. Their leaders are gone. We had a choice. We could take it and go on like that for years or do something about it. And we did something about it. And people are very impressed with our military, and they admire our military with what happened.
China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi, meanwhile, has condemned the war in the Middle East, saying it should never have happened and calling once again for an immediate end to hostilities. Speaking in a wide-ranging press conference on the sidelines of China's two sessions, he described how the region is currently engulfed in flames.
面对陷入战火的中东，我想说的是，这是一场本不应该发生的战争，也是一场对各方都没有好处的战争。
Iran, on the other side, says the country's forces can fight an intense war for 6 months, with Iran's Revolutionary Guards spokesperson Ali Mohammad Naini saying more advanced missiles, those built in the past 10 years, haven't been used.
نیروهای مسلح توانمند ما مقتدر جمهوری اسلامی حداقل برای یک جنگ تمام عیار 6 ماهه پر شدت با همین ریتم فعلی آمادگی کامل دارن.
Residents of the historic Sana continue daily routines in the old city during Ramadan, with shoppers at traditional markets and worshippers gathering at the Great Mosque of Sana, even as the regional conflict heightened concerns over security. Iran-backed Houthi leader Abdul Malik al-Houthi on March 5 said that his forces were prepared to strike at any moment. His remarks came amid escalating tensions following a series of attacks by the United States and Israel and Iran, reportedly involving thousands of strikes over the past 1 week. Despite the heightened regional threat, daily life in Sana's old city continues, with residents observing Ramadan traditions, highlighting the contrast between local routines and the broader geopolitical instability in the Middle East. Evenings are marked by gatherings at mosques and homes for prayers and breaking the fast, reflecting the persistence of cultural and religious traditions amid uncertainty. Swedish authorities have seized a false-flagged cargo ship off the country's southern coast, which is believed to be part of Russia's so-called Shadow Fleet and suspected of carrying stolen grains from Ukraine. The operation, conducted by the Swedish police in coordination with the Swedish Coast Guard, targeted the vessel after intelligence suggested it was involved in illicit grain shipments amid the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Authorities said the ship was registered under a false flag to conceal its ownership and evade international sanctions. Investigators are now inspecting the cargo and vessel documentation to determine the extent of the alleged theft and assess potential links to broader maritime smuggling networks. Swedish officials emphasized that the seizure underscores ongoing efforts to enforce international trade laws and prevent the diversion of Ukrainian agricultural exports. It is said incidents involving false-flagged ships highlight the challenges of monitoring maritime activity in conflict-affected regions, particularly as Russian-controlled fleets continue to operate under deceptive registrations to bypass sanctions and transport disputed goods.
Young parents across China are cutting household spending as rising cost of childcare adds pressure to family finances, highlighting challenges facing government efforts to boost the country's declining birth rate. Despite government incentives designed to encourage families to have more children, many parents say the support covers only a small portion of the real costs. China's leadership recently pledged to create a childbirth-friendly society as the country grapples with a worsening demographic crisis and record low birth rates. Authorities have introduced measures such as cash incentives and policy adjustments aimed at encouraging couples to have children. However, some families remain skeptical about whether the assistance will be enough. It is said that unless childcare, housing and education costs become more affordable, government incentives alone may struggle to reverse China's long-term population decline. Without broader reforms to reduce the cost of living and improve family support systems, demographic challenges are likely to intensify in the coming decades, as persistent financial pressures are forcing many couples to delay or reconsider having children altogether.
In the dense rainforest of the Philippines, entomologist Christian Lucanas conducts nocturnal fieldwork using a headlamp to locate and collect cockroaches by hand. At the age of 31, Lucanas is recognized as the country's sole specialist on the insect, which he says plays a crucial role in maintaining healthy ecosystems. Lucanas spends long hours in remote forest areas meticulously documenting different species and their behaviors to better understand their ecological roles. The scientists emphasize that cockroaches are essential decomposers and a key food source for birds, spiders, and other wildlife. He calls for increased attention to the study and conservation of cockroaches, arguing that their ecological contributions are undervalued by their ubiquity. He also advocates for public education, aiming to shift perceptions of cockroaches from pests to vital contributors in nutrient cycling and food webs. Conservationists note that protecting even less charismatic species like cockroaches is vital to preserving biodiversity and sustaining the balance of tropical rainforest ecosystems. Guatemala's Volcán de Fuego, one of Central America's most active volcanoes, erupted, sending ash plumes and lava flows into the air as authorities warned residents of heightened volcanic activity. Officials cautioned that both Volcán de Fuego and nearby Santiguito volcano pose risk of explosive activity, urging communities in surrounding areas to remain alert and follow instructions from local authorities in case of evacuations. Rising to 3,763 meters and located roughly 35 kilometers from Guatemalan city, Volcán de Fuego has a long history of frequent eruptions, often affecting nearby towns with ashfall, lava flows, and pyroclastic activity. Seismologists continue to monitor the volcano closely, tracking tremors and lava movement, while the government agencies have activated emergency response teams to provide support and safety updates to residents. Officials also advise travelers and nearby communities to exercise caution, noting that volcanic ash can disrupt transportation and pose health risk. As the International Women's Day is being celebrated today, in a notable example of women's empowerment, India's Gandhinagar railway station has been operated entirely by female staff since its inception nearly 8 years ago. The station is located on the Jaipur-Delhi main line, one of India's busiest passenger routes. The station handles around 50 trains passing through Delhi, with nearly 25 trains making scheduled stops. An estimated 7,000 to 10,000 passengers travel through Gandhinagar each day, including a large number of students and women, as several colleges and coaching institutes are situated nearby. A team of 30 women employees manages all aspects of station operations, including ticketing, platform management, customer service, and security. Their leadership ensures smooth day-to-day functioning and demonstrates the capability of women-led management in India's rail network. Railway officials say the station serves as a model for promoting gender equality and empowering women in traditionally male-dominated sectors of public service.
Visitors to Hong Kong's Tycoon are getting a chance to interact with Shetland ponies, the small but spirited breed from Scotland, as part of the Ponies on Parade event organized under the Hong Kong Jockey Club's Year of the Horse campaign. The event offers families a hands-on experience with the ponies, allowing participants to pet and observe the animals up close, though riding is not permitted for safety reasons. Kids say they love the Tycoon Shetland ponies, enjoying the playful and charming encounter.
I'm fascinated with horses. I like touching the pony because it feels so soft, and It feels warm and fuzzy.
Shetland ponies typically stand between 71 and 100 centimeters tall, but caretakers note their strong legs and agility. Parents and participants welcome the opportunity, noting that interactions with horses are rare in Hong Kong due to high costs and limited availability at equestrian centers. Online sales are fully booked, and only a limited number of on-site tickets will be available depending on daily capacity. Visitors unable to secure tickets can still view and photograph the ponies from outside the enclosures. Shetland ponies will be on display at Tai Kwun through the coming weekend, providing a chance for residents to experience the breed's renowned gentleness and charm firsthand. Vietnam hosted the Ho Chi Minh City Ao Dai Festival, showcasing hundreds of traditional Ao Dai, the national dress of Vietnam, in a vibrant celebration of the country's cultural heritage. This year's event was inspired by the theme Golden Silk Threads, with designers showcasing creations that celebrate Vietnam's silk heritage while reflecting the landscapes, traditions, and cultural identity of the country's 3 regions. The presentation was structured into 3 chapters: the thread of time, the flow of heritage, the thread of connection, the city of light, and weaving aspirations. Organizers said the program highlights not only Vietnam's cultural heritage, but also the spirit of friendship and cultural exchange between Vietnam and other countries. The annual festival is one of the city's major cultural events, aimed at promoting the Ao Dai as a symbol of Vietnamese identity, while supporting tourism and the country's fashion and textile industries.
Are you interested to know about Nepal and its major tourist destinations? Do you want to see some of the best destinations in Nepal? Are you the one who enjoys nature, culture and adventure? If yes is the answer, then come with us. We are introducing you to the tourism heaven of Nepal, the Gandaki province, and the exotic destinations. Gandaki province, the tourism capital of Nepal. Gandaki province is very rich with natural diversity and tourism potential. Pokhara is undoubtedly #1 destination for tourists in Nepal. The valley, blessed with natural beauty, attracts domestic and foreign tourists alike. You must have already visited Pokhara. If you haven't or planning another trip, then these are some of the must-go places in Pokhara. The first attraction in Pokhara is the Feva Lake. Boating in Feva Lake is a ritual for every tourist visiting this paradise. The Tal Barahi temple at the center of the lake adds to the beauty of the place. A round-trip boat ride in Feva Lake to and from the temple is a feature of both the lake as well as the temple. Separate boat ride, watching the reflection of Mount Machapuchre on the lake and fishing spice up the Feva experience. The lakeside along the banks of the Feva Lake is a popular tourist hub. Many tourists in Pokhara choose Devi's Fall as their second destination in Pokhara. The water from Feva Lake exits towards Seti River through the Gupteshwar cave from this Devi's Fall. The mighty water stream rushing deep down into the gorge, covered by water vapor, is a magical sight. Pokhara is known as the city of lakes and caves. Many of the lakes and caves have religious importance. This is Gupteshwar cave at Chorepatan area. Inside the cave, the idol of Lord Shiva is a well-known pilgrimage. Further inside the cave, one can see the Devi's Fall. Mahendra Cave is another famous place in Pokhara, and nearby is another well-known Chamere cave. Both the caves can be visited together. Two other well-known tourist destinations in Pokhara are Begnas and Rupa lakes. Fresh fish of Begnas lake is a sought-after delicacy. Rupa lake is just round the corner beyond a small hill towards the eastern edge of Begnas lake. Away from the hustle and bustle of the town, Begnas and Rupa lakes cannot be taken out of a tourist's itinerary. This is the famous White Monastery on top of the hill above Feva Lake. This is also a popular destination for domestic as well as foreign tourists. the top-angle bird's-eye view of Pokhara city from the monastery, is a sight to behold. The placid Pheva Lake, the tall mountain range, and the birds like paragliding pilots on the background of Sarankot Hill are mesmerizing. The Bindabasini temple in Pokhara is a famous shrine in Nepal. The best route to visit the temple is on the way to Sarankot. Devotees throng the Bindabasini temple, which is atop a small hill with panoramic view of Pokhara city. The Bindabasini temple is famous among the Hindus across the country. Sarankot is a hill station on top of a hill on the northwestern side of Pokhara. A must-go place to see the majestic Mount Machapuchre and Mount Dhaulagiri in the Annapurna range in front of the eyes, and also the Pokhara and Leknath cities on the other side. Sarankot is synonymous to paragliding in Nepal. Taking off from the Sarankot hill, one can enjoy the panoramic mountain range in addition to the bird's eye view of Pokhara city. Ultralight and zip flyer offer a thrill to adventure seekers in Pokhara and are becoming major interests for tourists. Other places, including Swarak in Sangja, have the potential to be world's best place for paragliding. First time in Nepal, paragliding Accuracy World Cup was held at this place, situated at Mahapur of Virkot municipality of the district. The place drew global attention after the event. Pokhara, famous tourism destination of the country. Majority of locals engaged in tourism industry. The city of lakes and caves, hub of aviation sports. Some major destinations: Lakeside, Pheva Lake and Tal Barahi Temple, Begnas and Rupa Lakes, Mahendra Gufa. Annapurna Circuit Trek features in world's 10 best destinations and adventures. The trekking circuit is the choice of many trekkers as it offers both adventure along with mesmerizing view of mountain ranges. Arguably the best trekking circuit in the world, travelers get up close with dozens of mountains including the Annapurna, Dhaulagiri, Nilgiri. Annapurna circuit ideally is a 14-day trek. The circuit passes through Lamjung, Manang, Mustang and Myagdi district, including Thorangla Pass as the highest point. Places including Thampus, Ghandruk and Poon Hill are part of this trekking circuit. The revered Muktinath shrine is also part of the circuit. Only foreigners were seen in this circuit few years back, but now domestic tourists are also flocking the area. If you are looking for a lifetime trekking experience, then pack your bags for Annapurna trekking circuit. Mardi Base Camp Trek, also part of the Annapurna circuit, is another alternative route for trekkers who can't afford time. Trekkers can be up close with mountains including the Annapurna range, Dhaulagiri, Machapuchre and Manasalu in this circuit. This 7-day circuit is attracting many trekkers for obvious reasons. Another famous trekking route in Gandaki province is Manasalu circuit. This circuit, not as popular as Annapurna, is seen as the alternative, as increasing road access in the Annapurna circuit is spoiling its charm. Not just for adventure and natural beauty, Gandaki province is also popular for religious tourism. Dozens of temples in this province draw devotees in numbers. Hundreds of thousands of religious tourists visit this province every year. These sites are important for domestic tourism. Muktinath is an important religious site for Hindus as well as Buddhists. The Muktinath temple is situated 3,710 meters above the sea level in the mountainous district of Mustang. For Hindus, this area is Mukti Kshetra, and Buddhists call it Chuming Gyatsa in Tibetan language. The religious site is famous for Saligram, revered as the manifestation of Lord Vishnu. As per Hindu belief, one who reaches this area will attain salvation. The Manakamana temple at Gorkha district is another very famous shrine for deity Manakamana. Literally means the deity who fulfills one's wishes. Situated some 1300 meters above the sea level, we can see Mahavarat hill range and Chimkeswari peak towards the south, and Mount Annapurna and Mount Manasalu among others towards the north. Beautiful sunrise and sunset is visible from the temple premises. Famously known as the Haridwar of Nepal, Triveni Dham is a historical and archaeological religious site for Hindus. The confluence of Narayani, Tamasa and Sonbhadra rivers is called Triveni Dham. 2 annual fairs draw thousands of devotees from home and abroad, mainly India, in this area. Hindus believe offering prayers and holy water from the river relieves one of sins. The mountainous district of Mustang features in world's top 10 tourist destinations. The natural splendor of Mustang, known as the land beyond the Himalayas, is simply striking. Domestic tourists, along with tourists from SAARC countries and others, arrive here every year. Jomsom Bazar, Kagbeni and Lomangthang are some of the places we can see in Mustang. Manang is known for Tilichu, the lake at the highest altitude in the world. Foreign tourists who arrive here are spellbound by the tall peaks, the suspension bridge at the 5th highest place in the world, and of course, the highest in South Asia, apple farms, and the warmth of the Manangi people. Dhorpatan Hunting Reserve is the only hunting reserve in Nepal. Established in 1987, it covers an area of 1325 square kilometers in the Dhaulagiri of western Nepal, spreading across Rukum, Magdi and Baglung districts. For those interested in gaming or hunting, this is the only destination. This area is the entry point of the Gorilla Trail, a day-long bus ride from Kathmandu to Burtibang or Baglung and a day's walk from there to Dhorpatan. Gandaki province is also the capital of homestay. The most famous and popular homestays are in this province. Nepal's first ever homestay, Sirubari homestay, is also in this province. Tourists flock this homestay in Sanja to experience the local culture and lifestyle. Homestay is a new concept for foreign tourists and a new alternative for domestic travelers. The Ghalegaon in Lamjung is also famous for its homestay. Ghalegaon is an ancient, almost 700 years old civilization and also called the model village of Sar. The main source of income for Ghalegaon dwellers is tourism. Lamjung district has the most number of homestays in Gandaki province. Kaulepani, Purankot and Bhujung homestays are some of the other well-known destinations in Lamjung. Homestays are popular because they not only provide accommodation and food at an affordable cost, but also give an opportunity to experience the rural life and culture. The Gorkha Palace is a historic monument in Gorkha district. This is where then King Prithvinarayan Saha, who conquered small kingdoms and unified into larger Nepal, was born. Not a faraway destination from Kathmandu, and also a subject of research and study for many. Some of the other attractions: Gorkha Palace Museum, Gorakhali Temple, Cave, Liglikot, Panoramic Mountain View, Barpak, the 2015 earthquake epicenter. Gandaki province is leading in tourism industry and an example how rural tourism can be a source of income. Bandipur is one such place where domestic as well as foreign tourists are seen round the calendar. Panchase is another such beautiful place along the border of Kaski, Sangja and Parvat districts. Panchase is known for its biodiversity and a model for rural tourism. Tourists who want to experience rural life in Nepal choose this place. Gandaki province offers something for tourists of all interests. From a day to a month, you can spend your trip as per your interest in destinations of your choice.
Probe Commission on September event submits report. Investigation cites misgovernance and regulatory failures. Recommends action against responsible officials. RSP sweeps House of Representatives elections, winning majority seats. Party leads threefold in PR. Nepal marks International Women's Day with nationwide celebrations. Theme highlights rights, justice, and opportunities for all women and girls. US and Israel strike Iran as Gulf tensions escalate on 9th day of war. Iran responds with drone attacks on Bahrain. China condemns conflict in Iran. Foreign Minister Wang Yi calls on US to resolve differences with Beijing. And India and New Zealand clash in ICC T20 World Cup final. Host India eye record title while New Zealand seeks first championship victory. Good evening, I'm Bijata Bhandari and you're watching NTV World News Hour, coming to you live from Kathmandu at 2200 hours Nepal time. Now the news in detail. The Judicial Commission, formed to investigate the September 8 and 9 protest, has submitted its report shortly after the completion of the March 5 House of Representatives elections. The panel, led by former Justice Gauri Bahadur Karki, had its tenure extended multiple times and reportedly held the report until the polls concluded. While the findings have not yet been made public, the report is expected to influence accountability for key officials, including figures such as former Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli and Home Minister Ramesh Lekhak. The upcoming government, likely backed by a two-thirds majority, now faces a major test over whether it will implement the report's recommendations and address concerns of misgovernance and corruption. We will see more on this on our Issue of the Day segment later today. Now, the Rashtriya Swatantra Party is dominating Nepal's House of Representatives elections, winning 122 constituencies and leading in 3 more as the vote counting continues. Nepali Congress has secured 17 seats, while the CPN-UML has won 8 and is leading in 2 others. In the proportional representation vote count, RSP is also ahead with around 2.9 million votes from the ballots counted so far. The results indicate a historic surge for the RSP, putting it on track to secure a near two-thirds majority and reshaping Nepal's political landscape. Nepal marked the 116th International Women's Day on Sunday, with nationwide programs promoting women's rights, equality and empowerment under the theme set by the Ministry of Women, Children and Senior Citizens. Speaking at an event, Prime Minister Sushila Karki called for greater participation of women in state policy making and stressed the need to uplift marginalized groups, including Dalit, Madhesi and Karnali women. This year's observance also highlighted a milestone in political representation, with several women elected to the House of Representatives of Nepal, including leaders such as Nisha Adangi, Indira Rana Magar and Sobita Gautam, among others. Alongside national events, women in rural areas such as Siangja are increasingly engaging in economic activities and leadership roles, reflecting gradual progress in gender equality. We will dive deeper on this on our cover story segment later in the bulletin. The US and Israel continue to strike Iran, hitting oil storage depots and refining facilities in Tehran for the first time and sparking large fires across the capital. An Iranian drone attack caused material damage to a water desalination plant in Bahrain, the country's interior ministry has said. This comes a day after Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said that the US bombed a freshwater desalination plant in Keshm Island in southern Iran, setting a precedent. Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates report more Iranian strikes even after Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian offered an apology and pledged to halt attacks on Gulf states if no attacks originate from their territories. Meanwhile, Iran's Revolutionary Guards has said the country's forces can fight an intense war for 6 months with spokesman Ali Mohammad Naini saying more advanced missiles, those built in the past 10 years, haven't been used.
نیروهای مسلح توانمند ما مقتدر جمهوری اسلامی حداقل برای یک جنگ تمام عیار 6 ماهه پر شدت با همین ریتم فعلی آمادگی کامل دارن.
China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi has condemned the war in Middle East, saying it should have never happened and calling once again for an immediate end to hostilities. Wang also urged the United States to iron out its differences with Beijing at the press conference during the National People's Congress.
面对陷入战火的中东，我想说的是，这是一场本不应该发生的战争。 也是一场对各方都没有好处的战争。
Beijing has previously blasted US and Israeli military actions in Iran, with which it has diplomatic and trade ties, and condemned in particular the killing of the country's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Moving on, India has given a target of a massive 256 runs to New Zealand in the final of the 10th edition of the ICC Men's T20 World Cup. The match is underway at the Narendra Modi Stadium. Batting first, India scored 255 runs for the loss of 5 wickets in their allotted 20 overs. Chasing the record target, New Zealand has begun its innings and is currently batting in the title-deciding clash. India is aiming to secure a record third T20 World Cup title, while New Zealand seeks to become a new champion. In the aftermath of the March 5 elections, Nepal's shifting political landscape is beginning to take shape as the Rashtriya Swatantra Party moves towards forming a historic majority government. At the same time, the long-delayed report of the Judicial Commission investigating the September 8 and 9 protests has finally been submitted. We explore this and more in our issue of the day after this break. Welcome back. You're watching NTV World News Hour. Now on to our issue of the day. 3-term extensions and finally the report held until the completion of the March 5 HOR elections. The Judicial Commission formed to investigate the 2 days of protests in September 8 and 9 has submitted its report. Though the report has not been made public, the recommendations and findings are being eagerly awaited by the public. With the election results favouring a sweeping change in the governance, the implementation of the report will be a litmus test for the upcoming government, which seems to be certainly backed by a 2/3 majority. Devendra Subedi brings more.
The Judicial Commission formed to investigate the protests and vandalism on September 8th and 9th has submitted its report. Interestingly, within hours of the completion of the March 5 House of Representatives elections, it's a clear indication that Prime Minister Susila Karki withheld the report before the election, sensing that it could spoil the environment for peaceful conclusion of the elections. What the report has suggested will only be public once the report goes into implementation, and hopefully it does get implemented, unlike in the past. Reports of some high-level commissions are still in the cells, which might have even been burnt to ashes in the arson inside Singha Darbar on the 9th of September. The former Justice Gauri Bahadur Karki-led commission, whose mandate was extended twice and the report kept in hold until the election, will be key to whether the new government, most likely formed by a new party, will really dare to act as per its promises. Though Prime Minister Karki committed to implement the report, the onus will be on the most probably two-third majority-backed upcoming government.
सिंगे यो वादीले यो भनौँ प्रतिवादीले यो भनौँ फलाले यो भनौँ फलाले बयान गरौँ त्यो त रिलिज हुँदैन निचोड के छ केही कुराहरू चाहिँ आउने हो त्यसैले फेरि पनि म एकदम धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु बहुत दुःख गरेर बहुत श्रम गरेर तिनैजनाले एकदम ठुलो एउटा चाहिँ उहाँहरूले मेहनत परिश्रम गरेर गर्नुभएको हो अन्य त्यो आयोगका अन्य जो सहयोग गर्नेहरू हुनुहुन्छ अफिसरहरू सचिवज्यूहरू उहाँहरूलाई पनि म धन्यवाद दिँदै यति नै भन्दछु.
Some of the key figures, including former Prime Minister K.P. Sharma Oli, Home Minister Ramesh Lekhak, and some key figures in the security agency as well as bureaucracy might even be indicted in the report. The challenge will be of the new government to make people believe that things have really changed in Nepal as per the expectation of seeing the report being implemented. Commission Chair Karki, in a brief summary, concluded that the youth-led movement was largely driven by widespread frustration over poor governance and corruption in state institutions. The statement of Karki was not a hidden truth, but the finding is what the general public are looking forward to know and see the implementation of the report.
Rashtriya Swatantra Party is poised to form a historic majority government in Nepal following a landslide election victory. As the last remaining election results continue to pour in, the mandate has clearly granted the relatively new party a chance to govern the country independently. Despite this power shift away from the earlier established political parties, the road ahead is not going to be as easy as it seems. Sabika Shrestha looks into the road ahead for the RSP.
Established just 4 years ago, Nepal's Rashtriya Swatantra Party (RSP) is nearing an overwhelming two-third majority in the House of Representatives. The people in the March 5 election have shown their faith in the new party that has been championing good governance and anti-corruption crusade in the country. However, despite the clear majority, which in fact could exceed the magic figure of two-thirds in the lower house, experts suggest that the road ahead is not going to be as easy as promised. While a majority government can bring programs as per its election manifesto to establish good governance, draft new laws, pass budgets and maintain a corruption-free administration, it would still lack the unilateral power to amend the constitution, declare a state of emergency, hold referendums, or sign long-term international treaties. As an RSP-led majority government becomes a near certainty, a clear debate has emerged regarding its capabilities and limitations. According to experts, government with two-thirds majority will not have any pressure from coalition partners in maintaining good governance to corruption-free administrative mechanism. Bringing the policy and programs as per the manifesto and allocating budget accordingly will also not be an issue, but the problem, as always, has been in the implementation. People will be eyeing the implementation more than the documents, which are promising without doubts. Furthermore, government with two-thirds majority would have the power to impeach and remove heads of constitutional bodies, members or high-ranking officials like the Chief Justice in cases of constitutional violations or incompetence. However, would the government prioritize such issues or works towards addressing the public concerns on service delivery and crackdown on corruption is the pertinent question.
दुई तिहाई बहुमत चाहिँ दुईटै सदनको चाहियो त्यसको लागि चाहिँ राष्ट्रिय सभाको आफ्नो त दुईटै छँदैछ। प्रतिनिधि सभामा कुनै दलसँग सरोकार राख्न परेन, कन्सल्ट गर्न परेन, तर राष्ट्रिय सभामा त उसले 2टा या 3टा दललाई चाहिँ कन्सल्ट गर्न पर्यो, ट्रस्ट लिन पर्यो। त्यो भयो भने के गर्न सक्छ भन्दा शासकीय स्वरूपमा परिवर्तन गर्न सक्छ, जुन चाहिँ आज शासकीय स्वरूपमा चाहिँ ले स्थिर सरकार दिन सकेन, एकमना सरकार हुन सकेन भने थियो, आज एकमना सरकार भयो। त्यसमा चाहिँ निर्वाचन प्रणाली फेर्ने भनेका छन्। अब एकदम लोकप्रिय दल भयो भने त निर्वाचन प्रणाली नफेरे पनि 2/3 आउन सक्ने स्थिति रहेछ नि त। निर्वाचन प्रणाली फेर्ने नफेर्ने भन्ने प्रश्न पनि रह्यो। यदि चाहिँ कोलिसन गभर्मेन्ट भएको भए निर्वाचन प्रणाली फेर्न पर्थ्यो भन्ने कुरा आउँथ्यो, तर त्यो पनि नपर्नु पनि सक्छ। या डाइरेक्ट इलेक्टेड प्रधानमन्त्री या राष्ट्रपति हुने भन्ने जेनजीको चाहिँ जुन माग छ, त्यसलाई चाहिँ राष्ट्रिय सभाको 2टा 3टा दललाई चाहिँ उसले ट्रस्ट लियो भने संविधान संशोधन गरेर शासकीय स्वरूपमा पनि परिवर्तन गर्न सक्छ।
However, obtaining a single party majority does not make a government omnipotent. For several critical decisions, a 2/3 majority in both the House of Representatives and the National Assembly is mandatory. With the upper house still in favor of the now defeated political parties, it would not be easy for the dominant force in the lower house to act as per its will when it comes to amending constitution.
एक्लै नै सरकार बन्न सक्यो। धारा 76 कै त्यो एक्टिभ हुने भयो। संसदमा प्रतिनिधि सभाबाट उत्पत्ति हुने जति विधेयक हुन्छन्, जति कानुन बन्छन्, त्यो प्रतिनिधि सभामा उत्पत्ति भयो भने राष्ट्रिय सभामा पुगेपछि राष्ट्रिय सभाले यदि गरेन भने पनि प्रतिनिधि सभा फर्केर आएर त्यसले बहुमतबाट पारित गरेर आफ्नै इच्छा आकांक्षा अनुसार कानुन बनाउन सक्छ। संवैधानिक निकायका प्रमुखहरू, सदस्यहरू, प्रधान न्यायाधीश या न्याय परिषद सदस्य र न्यायाधीशहरूलाई पनि कार्यक्षमताको अभाव देखायो या उसको चाहिँ संविधानको घोर उल्लङ्घन गर्यो भने त्यस्तो अवस्थामा महाभियोग लगाएर पनि हटाउन सक्ने प्रतिनिधि सभा भित्रैबाट गर्न सक्ने त्यो चाहिँ क्षमता राख्दछ।
Political analysts believe the current public mandate is a result of disillusionment with traditional parties and a deep desire for change. Also, the internal power equation is something the relatively new party is yet to institutionalize. However, if the government fails to meet public expectations, the people will certainly seek alternatives, if not immediately, in the next election. Sapika Shrestha with camera person Dhruva Thapa reporting for NTV World.
In this context, we asked the public what is their message to the winning candidates of the recently held House of Representatives elections. Let's have a look at what they had to say.
जनताले जसरी जिताएर पठाउनु भएको छ, उहाँहरूले काम गरेर जो जित्ते जो हारे पनि जनता नहारोस्, उहाँहरूले आफूले गरेका बाचाहरू पूरा गर्नु पर्यो, सहकारीका पैसा फिर्ता गरिदिन्छु भन्नुभएको छ, त्यो गर्नु पर्यो।
रोजगारी सिर्जनाका सन्दर्भमा, विकास निर्माणका सन्दर्भमा र शिक्षा, स्वास्थ्य, पूर्वाधार लगायतका विकास निर्माणका कामहरूमा उहाँहरूको प्रस्तुति, उहाँहरूको भूमिका चाहिँ महत्त्वपूर्ण हुनुपर्छ।
सुशासनको व्यवस्था होस्, भ्रष्टाचारको अन्त होस्, रोजगारीको सिर्जना होस्, कोही विदेश जानु नपरोस्, यहीँ कल कारखानाहरूको स्थापना होस्।
एउटा सामान्य व्यवसायले 4 ठाउँमा कर तिर्नुपर्ला चाहिँ करको चाहिँ पनि अन्त्य गर्नु पर्यो उहाँहरूले।
आयात मात्रै हुने, बिक्री नहुने के विदेशमा त्यो ल्याउनु पर्छ। अनि त्यहाँबाट शिक्षामा अलिकति सुधार ल्याउनु पर्छ।
जनताका आधारभूत आवश्यकताहरू, स्वास्थ्य, शिक्षा, रोजगार लगायतका विषयहरूमा विकासका कुराहरूमा अपेक्षा गरेका छन्।
And that wraps up our Issue of the Day segment. Now on to the next. Nepal is marking the 116th International Women's Day with programs across the country highlighting women's rights and equality. The occasion also comes amid a notable political moment, with Sushila Karki serving as the country's first female Prime Minister and more women entering the House of Representatives in the aftermath of the March 5 polls. We dive deeper into this in our cover story of the day after this short break. Welcome back. You're watching NTV World News Hour. Nepal marked the 116th International Women's Day today with a variety of programs across the country. This year's theme, set by the Ministry of Women, Children and Senior Citizens, is Rights, Justice and Opportunities for All Women and Girls with Action. The day is observed annually with a public holiday to honor women's labor, achievements and ongoing struggles for equality. International Women's Day originated from the campaign of German socialist thinker Clara Zetkin, who linked women's rights with the broader struggles of the working class. Events across Nepal today include cultural programs, discussions, and awareness campaigns aimed at promoting gender equality and empowering women. Prime Minister Sushila Karki has called for a greater participation of women in state policy making during a program at the Prime Minister's office on the 116th International Women's Day. Prime Minister Karki highlighted that marginalized women, including Dalits, Madhesis, and those from the Karnali region, remain deprived of development opportunities and face the greatest hardships. Prime Minister Karki emphasized the need to integrate backward classes, especially women, into mainstream development and ensure equal access to resources. The executive head stressed that democracy must guarantee the respectful participation of every citizen in nation building. Referring to the Gen Z movement of September 8 and 9, Prime Minister Karki noted that the struggle for equality and good governance continues, requiring cooperation from all segments of society to end injustice and discrimination.
लोकतन्त्रमा कुनै पनि शक्तिको वैधता नागरिकको आत्मसम्मानको जगमा उभिएको हुन्छ। तसर्थ महिला लगायत विकासको मूल धारबाट पछि परेको वर्गलाई मूल धारमा ल्याउँदै अवसर र स्रोतहरूमा पहुँच सुनिश्चित गर्दै राष्ट्र निर्माणमा प्रत्येक नागरिकको सम्मानयुक्त सहभागिता सुनिश्चित गर्नु नै आजको लोकतन्त्रको मूल अभिष्ट हुनुपर्छ। आज हामी नारीको स्रोत, साधन र अवसरमा पहुँच अवश्य बढेको छ, तर त्यसको तुलनामा आत्मसम्मान पाउन मुस्किल परिरहेको छ। समान अवसर पहुँचको सुनिश्चितता भन्नुको अर्थ हो यहाँ विभेद र पक्षपात नहोस्, अन्याय र भ्रष्टाचार नहोस्, सबै नागरिक प्रति उत्तिकै जिम्मेवार र समान व्यवहार गर्ने संस्कृतिको विकास होस् भन्ने नै हो।
As the world celebrates 116th Women's Day, Nepal marks a significant shift in women empowerment, with a sizable presence of women in the legislature. Led by the first ever female Prime Minister Sushila Karki, the historic HOR election has ensured the presence of capable women who not only make the head count, but make their presence felt at a policy-making level. So far, 13 women have already been elected in the first-past-the-post system, with more than 50 seats already reserved under the proportional representation. Subeksha Rajak looks into the figures of women presence in Nepal's upcoming parliament.
For the first time in history, Nepal marked the International Women's Day with a female executive head at the high office. Former Chief Justice Sushila Karki has already succeeded in holding the much-doubted House of Representatives election on March 5. As the final election results trickle in, let's look at the number of women represented in Nepal's new parliament, the lower house, as the possible composition in terms of women's presence. The woman who will be championing the voice of more than 50% of the country's population in the lower house includes Nisha Dangi of the Rashtriya Swatantra Party, who secured victory in Jhapa Constituency 1 with 45,680 votes. Indira Rana Magar, the former Deputy Speaker, emerged victorious in Jhapa Constituency 2 with a staggering 60,110 votes. In Morung, Asha Jha and Rubina Acharya, both from RSP, fought hard to break the so-called fortress of Nepali Congress. Bagmati province witnessed a clean sweep by young candidates. Dr. Toshima Karki retained Lalitpur with 43,096 votes. From the plains of Madhesh, Pushpa Kumari Chaudhary, Nitima Bhandari Karki and Gauri Kumari will be making their voices heard. From the mountains of Karnali, Basana Thapa rose with 12,372 votes. Ashika Tamang with 39,128 votes. In Sudar Paschim, Komal Gewali won in Kailali with 17,826 votes. And in Kathmandu, youth leaders Ranju Darshana and Sobita Gautam made history, securing highest vote at 59,227. 13 historic winners under the first past the post system. Out of 3,406 candidates in the 2026 election, only 388 were women, making it little over 11%. Rashtriya Swatantra Party leads the women elected candidates with 12 of the 13 elected so far from it. As the women representation under proportional system has to be mandatorily 50% or above, it's sure that out of 275 members in Nepal's lower house, women will have a sizable presence. Unlike in the past when women were just represented but hardly heard, on this Women's Day, the country can expect much influential and potent women presence in Nepal's legislature.
In the hinterlands of Nepal, many women still await meaningful changes in their legal and social status. They seek equal treatment on participation and empowerment while living with dignity like anyone else. Women have faced numerous challenges in their long struggle for equality. However, in the village of Siangja, Nepal, women are gradually beginning to break free from the constraints of patriarchal norms. Rojina Rai with our local correspondent Himal Neupani from Siangja brings the story.
Rural women's empowerment in Nepal is undergoing a gradual transformation marked by notable legal political progress. Despite these advancements, many women in rural areas continue to face deep-rooted patriarchal norms and limited economic autonomy. However, after a long struggle for equality, visible changes are emerging in the lives of women in remote parts of the country, including Siangja, Nepal. In recent years, women who were once largely silent have begun to challenge traditional boundaries. Once confined mainly to household chores, many are now actively engaged in economic activities and administrative roles. Today, numerous women in the district have become skilled and confident through vocational training programs introduced by local governments and other stakeholders. Training in sewing, weaving, mushroom farming, and the cultivation of other cash crops under the Rural Women's Empowerment Initiative has helped transform their daily lives. Their efforts are increasingly meeting local demand for agricultural produce, locally stitched clothing, and handicrafts. In many communities of Siangja, rural women are now forming the backbone of the agricultural sector. At the same time, the growth of women-led cooperatives and microfinance initiatives is promoting financial independence and strengthening women's role in household decision-making. Across the district's 11 local administrative units, this shift is becoming more visible as women participate more actively in the workforce. Not long ago, many women hesitated even to speak about their rights. Today, the reality is changing. These initiatives are not only generating income but also enabling women to contribute financially to their families, giving them a stronger voice within their households and communities. Supported by the policies that promote gender equality, women are increasingly visible and active in politics, administration, education, health, business, and community leadership. Rojina Rai with Himal Neupane from Siangja reporting for NTV World.
That was our cover story. Now on to other updates. The Election Commission has decided not to announce the results for Thanusha 1 of Madhya Province for the March 5 House of Representatives election. A letter regarding this decision was sent out today to the Office of the Chief Election Officer of Thanusha, according to Branch Officer Arun Adhikari. The Commission had previously cancelled the candidacy of Kishori Sa Kamal of the Rashtriya Swatantra Party from Thanusha 1 on March 2nd, after finding his name on the Credit Information Bureau's blacklist. A case regarding this cancellation is currently under review in the Supreme Court, and until the court issues a ruling, the Commission has requested that the vote count for Thanusha 1 not be announced. Air pollution in the Kathmandu Valley has started to increase. Gyanraj Subedi, Director General of the Department of Environment, explained that prolonged lack of rain and stagnant air have caused the hazy conditions, which in turn have worsened the pollution. Although pollution is lower than last year and unlikely to spike without forest fires, the air quality index reached 186 by midday, making Kathmandu the fourth most polluted city in the world. Experts emphasize that proper waste management, controlling forest fires, vehicle emission checks, and strict enforcement of standards can help reduce the pollution. The AQI classifies 151 to 200 as unhealthy for all, and people are urged to take precautions accordingly. Time now for more international updates, but before that, let's have a quick recap of our top stories once again. Probe Commission on September event submits report. Investigation cites misgovernance and regulatory failures. Recommends action against responsible officials. RSP sweeps House of Representatives elections, winning majority seats. Party leads threefold in PR. Nepal marks International Women's Day with nationwide celebrations. Theme highlights rights, justice and opportunities for all women and girls. US and Israel strike Iran as Gulf tensions escalate on 9th day of war. Iran responds with drone attacks on Bahrain. China condemns conflict in Iran. Foreign Minister Wang Yi calls on US to resolve differences with Beijing. And India and New Zealand clash in ICC T20 World Cup final. Host India eye record title while New Zealand seeks first championship victory. Now on to international updates. Dozens of people have been killed in Lebanon in major Israeli air and ground operations as the war with the Iran-backed group Hezbollah continues to escalate. Overnight, one Israeli operation in a town in eastern Bekaa Valley, which is a focal point of the rising hostilities, saw at least 41 people killed and 40 injured, according to the Lebanese Health Ministry. 3 Lebanese soldiers were among the dead, and locals listed the names of civilians, including children, they said had been killed. The focus of the operation in Nabi Sheet was recovering the remains of an Israeli military airman who went missing in Lebanon 40 years ago. In the meantime, foreign tourists remain stranded in Dubai after airports across the United Arab Emirates suspended flights following a regional escalation with Iran. Visitors from Europe report cancelled flights and sharply increased ticket prices, leaving many confined to hotels while seeking alternative routes home. Dubai International Airport, a major global transport hub, briefly closed on Saturday after Iran launched missiles and drones targeting locations across the Gulf, prompting heightened security measures. Airline officials said the suspension affected both international and domestic flights, creating widespread disruptions for the travelers. Authorities are monitoring the situation closely, coordinating with airlines to resume operations as well. However, it is warned that prolonged disruptions could significantly impact tourism and business travel in the region, with thousands of passengers currently facing uncertainty over their return plans. Meanwhile, an explosion inside a nightclub in Peru's northern Trujillo injured 33 people early Monday morning, according to the authorities, as investigators described the incident as a possible attack. The blast occurred at Dali nightclub, located in the Victor Larco Herrera district of La Libertad department, approximately 500 kilometers north of Lima. The regional government classified the explosion as an attack amid ongoing concerns over organized crime in the area. Local officials warned residents to remain vigilant as law enforcement increases security measures around the nightlife venues. Researchers from the University of Science and Technology of China have achieved a major breakthrough in optical clock technology, developing a strontium optical lattice clock with stability and uncertainty both surpassing the 10 to the power 19 level, meaning the clock would lose or gain less than 1 second over roughly 30 billion years. Optical clocks are considered the most precise timekeeping devices currently available. They measure time by using the frequency of light emitted when electrons transition between energy levels in the atoms. They can directly support the redefinition of the second in the International System of Units. Beyond timekeeping, optical clocks can provide highly accurate time references for modern technologies such as satellite navigation, telecommunications, and precision measurements. They also offer new experimental platforms for testing fundamental physics, including general relativity, as well as for the detection of gravitational waves and the dark matter. Guatemala's Volcán de Fuego, one of Central America's most active volcanoes, erupted, sending ash and lava into the air as authorities warned residents of heightened volcanic activity. Officials cautioned that both Volcán de Fuego and nearby Santiaguito volcano pose risk of explosive activity, urging local communities to remain alert and prepared for potential evacuations. Volcán de Fuego, which rises to 3,763 meters and is located at 35 kilometers from Guatemala City, frequently exhibits eruptions, making it the most active volcano in the region. Authorities continue to monitor seismic activity and provide updates to ensure the public safety. Time again for a short break. We will see you on the other side with business news.
India overtook Japan to become the world's fourth largest economy, marking a major milestone in the country's rapid economic expansion. However, the benefits of growth remain uneven, with millions of people still struggling to secure stable and well-paid jobs. The rise reflects years of strong economic performance driven by domestic consumption, infrastructure investment, and a growing services sector. Government officials have highlighted the milestone as evidence of the country's increasing global economic influence. Despite the achievement, concerns remain about whether the growth is translating into improved living standards across the country, particularly in rural areas. While India's economy continues to expand rapidly, challenges such as unemployment, income inequality, and rural development must be addressed to ensure the gains from growth are more widely shared. The US-Israeli military action against Iran has left Thailand among the Asian economies most vulnerable to a spike in global oil prices after Iran's tightened control over the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most critical oil shipping routes. Thailand relies heavily on imported energy. Net energy imports account for around 6% of GDP, while net oil imports alone represent roughly 4.7%. Therefore, any surge in global oil prices driven by the Middle East conflict could quickly translate into higher fuel costs and rising inflation, increasing transportation and overall living costs for people across the country. The country's tourism sector may also be affected. Heightened geopolitical uncertainty or disruptions to international travel could discourage visitors, dealing a significant blow to an industry that contributes around 20% of Thailand's GDP. Another concern is Thailand's strong dependence on exports, which make up up roughly 60% of the country's GDP. Global credit rating agency Fitch Ratings has affirmed France's sovereign credit rating at A+, with a stable outlook, citing the country's strong economic base and institutional framework, while warning that high public debt remains a key vulnerability. The agency said France benefits from a large and diversified economy, effective institutions, and strong financing flexibility. However, it noted that the government faces limited room to reduce public debt due to persistent budget deficits and a challenging political environment. According to Fitch, political fragmentation and public resistance to fiscal reforms could make it difficult for authorities to implement measures needed to significantly consolidate public finances.
Now to the latest from the sports. All Nepal Football Association ANFA has announced a new date for its repeatedly postponed elections scheduled for March 27. As the election date approaches, footballers have intensified their protests, demanding attention to football-related issues. Members of the Nepal Football Players Association padlocked the ANFA headquarters in Satubato under the leadership of Bikram Lama. The players have demanded the finalization of the Martyrs Memorial A-Division League, public disclosure of the Players' Endowment Fund, and payment of prize money pending for the past 9 years. They warned that stronger protests will follow if their 3-point demands are not addressed. Machindra Football Club climbed to second place in the ANFA National League after defeating Jaulak-Hill Youth Club 2-0 at the Dashrath Stadium on Sunday. Jonathan Eduardo Cantillo scored both goals for the Machindra in the 32nd minute and in the final moments of the second half. With the victory, Machindra collected 19 points from 8 matches in the league standings. Jaulak-Hill, meanwhile, remain on 9 points from the same number of the matches after the defeat. In another match on Sunday, Sankata Club and Laliguras Association Club shared points after a goalless draw. Now the weather updates, first from across Nepal and then the world. This brings us to the end of this news bulletin, but before we say goodbye, a reminder of the headlines. Probe Commission on September event submits report. Investigation cites misgovernance and regulatory failures. Recommends action against responsible officials. RSP sweeps House of Representatives elections, winning majority seats. Party leads threefold in PR. Nepal marks International Women's Day with nationwide celebrations. Theme highlights rights, justice and opportunities for all women and girls. US and Israel strike Iran as Gulf tensions escalate on 9th day of war. Iran responds with drone attacks on Bahrain. China condemns conflict in Iran. Foreign Minister Wang Yi calls on US to resolve differences with Beijing. And India and New Zealand clash in ICC T20 World Cup final. Host India eye record title while New Zealand seeks first championship victory. That is all for the moment. Do join us through our social media and get the latest updates from our official website at nepaltelevision.com. I'm Visheta Bhandari. Thank you for watching. Good night.
प्रमाणपत्र ग्रहण गर्दैछ यतिखेर